Don't be afraid to have somebody come along and do stuff for you, because one of the things I say, like, do your camera if you're doing an interview, because one of the things is, I say often is, just because you can now do everything yourself doesn't mean you should do everything yourself. And if you're nervous with the technology or nervous with something else, you know, if you're watching the camera and seeing what's going on there and you're listening in the earphones, you're not listening to your interviewee. So, you know, be aware of that. There's no shame in having somebody come along and give you a hand. Get a friend, and they can be listening and seeing that the picture is still going, and then you don't have to worry about it, right? Be focused. Christopher's dead on in that. If the sharper and more focused your questions are, the less tape or less interviews you'll have to go through. The biggest mistake people sometimes make is go, oh, I don't need to ask questions, we'll just let it go, and they're so unfocused it's all over the bloody place and they don't get what they want. You know, I always say at least have the 2 or 3 questions that you really need answered written down and in front of you, right? Don't go, oh, I'll remember it and we'll just have a nice conversation, because you'll wander off somewhere into the distance because people are interesting and you get sidetracked. The other thing is one of the easiest things to remember about lighting and sound. About lighting is, look at somebody, and if you see big shadows, be pretty sure that the camera's going to reinforce those shadows. Try and get the light behind the camera onto the person, right? After that, you can start to finesse it, you can make it better, but get the light between the camera, or behind the camera, or you between the light and the person, because that's what counts. And the joy of these things, they've got the little LCD that's there, so if somebody's sitting right underneath the light or something and you see these dark shadows there, well, unless you want them to have really dark shadows and look kind of evil, move them a couple feet, you know, just be aware. And it's the same thing for the background. The final thing about sound is you always need to have an off-board microphone. Don't delude yourself that the camera mic is good enough. Touch the camera body, you know, and you get that in there, it sounds terrible. The camera mics aren't really shotguns, they're not directional, so it's always boomy, right? So, you know, have an off-board mic. Proximity is your big friend. Sound decreases at twice the size, the distance, right? So when you get something, the closer you can get the microphone to the person, the better. In a noisy environment, you either want to get really, really close or have a lav on the person, or better yet, find an environment that's not so noisy. But getting close means getting better sound. So if you can get the mic closer to them, either on the camera or off the camera, or using what's called a lav mic, that really counts too.
LAV?
LAV is for lavalier, which is French for necklace or something like that.
Okay.
And because the placement of the microphone goes basically where a necklace would run, right? If it's too high, it gets boomy, and if it's too low, you lose some other frequencies, and that's a whole bunch of theory you don't have to worry about, as long as you remember to put it kind of in that necklace area. And that's the big thing. Just be aware of what's in your frame. Get your mic as close as you can, and be aware how your subject looks, because if they look bad, it's your fault.